Welcome back to Smart Nonsense, episode 39. I'm Henry, that's Dylan. On Smart Nonsense, we talk about self-development, entrepreneurship, challenging norms. Today, we're doing a pod club, a book club on Anything You Want. It's by Derek Sivers. It's a nice little gem. It's like, how many pages is this? 90? 85. 85 pages. 85 pages. Dylan, how you been? Can we please have some nonsense? Please.
Please. Myers. I'm so excited. I don't know if there's enough nonsense here because it's just, this book is kind of nonsense. It's like untraditional smarts.
Yeah.
In that, well, one, just the author, Derek Sivers. Let's talk about him for a second.
I know nothing about him, by the way.
Okay. He also has, well, he's probably in multiple places, but I listened to his Tim Ferriss podcast. We can link that. I forget what episode. But some quick background. He went to Berklee College of Music. He was into music, like gifted dude in the industry, but he just didn't really have a plan in life, and he just like heard about this circus. He got like a circus gig somewhere, and then he just traveled around playing music, being an MC for this circus, and did that for years, and then just stumbled across CD Baby to solve his own problem and his friends' problems. And for those of you that don't know, CD Baby is basically, if you're an independent music person back in 1998 or whenever they started, it was hard to get your music out there and make money off of it. So he had that problem. His friends from Berklee had that problem. He really just created it by accident, and it just blew up and ended up getting over $100 million in sales. And then he sold it for 20.
I think that's what's so interesting about his angle is through this entire book, he's basically just saying like, it's hard. I want to say he got lucky in a lot of ways with CD Baby. And I think he's pushing that kind of luck agenda really hard, as if that's kind of the end all be all. He's really unconventional in the sense that actually at the end of the book, he's like, I'm happiest when I'm working with 5 people and I'm working alone. Like, he really just kind of stumbled into this thing. I forget how it started.
What we were talking about with Avatar too. It's like some of the best stuff you just stumble into.
Exactly. Yeah, if you listen to the episode with Avatar, I don't know what number.
27, I want to say.
27? That was 10 ago?
37, sorry.
37.
Oh my God.
A few ago. Geez. So it was, yeah, so Dylan's created this kind of automated content machine, and halfway through the episode, Avatar realizes like, wait, I want that. And that's kind of how CD Baby started. So you just like, he was early on the web in the .com bubble, and he figured out how to put music online. And then he figured, 5-10 of my closest musician friends would also like this. And so he did it. Do you remember the what he said? Like, he didn't know how to do this, but do you remember what he said about the $4? So he didn't know what he was supposed to charge.
Business model wise.
Yeah. So he goes down to the local record shop in person, and he's like, hey, I want to sell an album here. What does that mean? And she's like, well, we would just take a $4 setup fee, and then whatever. So he goes home, writes on his website, there's a $4 setup fee, and then, you're
and then whatever, like, you get control everything else.
I think that's an awesome way to create. It's just like take things from around you and apply them differently.
You said the book title, Anything You Want.
Yeah, I said the book title. Yeah.
And okay, well, I wasn't listening to you well, but I didn't internalize how important that title is until I really just took a second, tried and list down my top 3 takeaways. And that's the biggest unconventional realization that I had, was you're not creating a business to make money. You're creating a business to have fun and be happy.
Yes. He says
that's
it's
the purpose.
Like you're creating a kind of like a community where you decide the laws. You decide what the heck is going on inside your business.
And that's what we're seeing. Like this morning, Henry, thank God for waking up that early, but we had a meeting with the team, and it's fun. Like, I enjoy the creative process, figuring out how we can make the systems work. I enjoy it. I'm getting happy, and it's important to, I don't know if I want to get super structured, but I do have 3 takeaways. And the first one is why. Like, why are you doing what you're doing? I have a very clear reason for this podcast. I really just I enjoy talking to Henry first. I enjoy talking to interesting people. I want to get more and more interesting
That's
people on.
so true. This came out of our enjoyment for talking on the phone for 20 or 30 minutes a day.
Literally.
Like, you can't have a more clear, more simple, more stumbled upon kind of why than that.
And then you stumble upon like, oh, all right, we start the podcast, but how are we going to make money? And then we stumble upon an idea, and then another idea builds off of that. And that's what happens. Like I remember when I was abroad in Argentina, and I was thinking like, oh, I want to do a business. I want to write this blog about personal finance. And it was just an uphill battle the whole time. Like no one wants to learn about credit scores. It fucking sucks.
You're forcing it. Yeah.
And then, so he has a whole chapter on this. It's like, when it doesn't click, switch.
That was actually one of my rebuttals, but yeah,
all right.
Continue. A gentle rebuttal.
Okay. Well, it's kind of connected too to one of your interesting, like your favorite points, which is funny to me. But the idea isn't worth a ton, but it does have merit in that, like, you don't want a bad idea and try and shove it down someone's throat with marketing and just like it's never going to be easy. Whereas right now I'm finding it's really easy, and it turns into, instead of convincing people to say yes, you're having to tell people no.
Right.
They're like, oh, I want to work with you so bad. And it's like, I'm sorry. I want to focus on our own podcast. Like, we're going to talk to Avatar after this, or I am. And I'm like, hey man, I want to help you out, but I just don't know if I can right now.
That's really interesting. Okay, I'm coming from it. I just don't think the title of that chapter is "If It's Not a Hit, Switch," like you said.
Mm-hmm.
No, not like you.
Right.
If it's not a hit,
kind of
switch.
Like
And I don't think it's always that black and white. He's basically saying like, if it's not a hell yeah when you tell someone this, then it's a no. Or you kind of gave the inverse, like you want to be turning people away. And I think sometimes you can be on the right track. It's not necessarily a smash hit yet. Maybe you're with the wrong demographic. Maybe some key, I don't know, activity of your business. Well,
you're not going to stumble upon the perfect idea right out of the gate. And maybe this isn't what you're saying, but I think like it can be good enough. Like there's just some traction. I think the point is like people should want it.
Oh yeah.
It's binary in the sense, do people want it, or does it feel like you're forcing
it? Yes. Okay, then I agree. I just thought the point he was making was more like, if people aren't jumping up and down screaming for this thing the second you create it, get out. And I think it needs a little bit more elaboration than that.
I don't think it'll ever be the case because, for example, listening to this podcast in the beginning, I mean, actually people were messaging us from kind of the beginning to be on it and stuff, but relatively speaking, it was crude. It wasn't good. I was talking into a toaster. It was just bad quality. And now it gets better and better, and the traction builds. But I think it is clear you get that sense of, am I trying to convince people that what I'm doing is awesome, or are they trying to convince me?
Yeah. And then one step further is Derek Sivers says, like, you should be creating things that when you're gone, your customers miss you and want you and need you. That was interesting to me. Not that this counts in any way, but my YouTube channel, for instance, when I was missing a week or 2 weeks, like the people closest to me that watch every single video, they were like, dude, where were you? Like, what, you can't post anymore? Like, I'm not saying like the general public wants this, but it was kind of an interesting point. Like, if you don't have does he say 1,000 true fans, or is that someone else? I think that was CD Baby.
That's Kevin Kelly.
Oh, Kevin Kelly. Yeah. But basically, yeah, if you don't have your 1,000 true fans around you, missing you and doing anything, buying anything, then yeah, you're probably not onto something. I think that's good.
I do think, yeah, it's that people chasing entrepreneurship is dangerous. And I remember I went to Duke when I was junior in high school. I was touring there to see if I went, and there was this one student, maybe I can say his name, Tito Bortz. I don't know how to say his last name, but he's Latin or whatever. and kind of connected with him, and my dad was there, and he was doing entrepreneurship. Like he was somehow working for.
Wait, why does his name matter? Is it going to be
I,
important?
I don't know. It's just like people that are personal. I don't know.
Oh,
I'm sure it's fine. He has his own agency now in Miami, of like a sales agency,
all right. What
doing well.
happened?
So he in college he set up this system because somehow he got in contact with this like New York billionaire or something. He's super outgoing, like just smart dude. I think it was a billionaire, successful dude, regardless. And so he contracts Tito because Tito has connections to Latin America, and Tito can outsource some of the production for this guy for his sales force. And so, like Tito had never thought to get into that. It was more so like he just stumbled across this guy or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, wait, you live in Latin America and you're well connected. You seem like you're good at sales. Do you have like a network?" And like it just it kind of grew spontaneously. And what his message was out of that when we were on the tour, he's like, I don't believe in having an entrepreneurship degree. I don't think you should study it. And I mean, I have my own considerations there, but I think it's true. It's like you really don't want to force any idea.
Yeah.
I don't want to beat this.
You have to just do it. Even if you want to take it all the way back to just being an entrepreneur. Like, I'm like, you can shadow an entrepreneur, you can like work with entrepreneurs. I'm not so sold on the fact that you can teach entrepreneurship because I mean, part of it is just like it's an art form, it's subjective. It's you got to be out in the field to figure it out.
I was listening to
Come on,
Gary Vee on Tim Ferriss.
Well, it's one of
Gary
five people. It's Gary Vee, Tim Ferriss. Maybe it's just one of two people.
Okay, I'll find the link for you so you can put it in the show notes. But Gary Vee on someone, and he was talking about how entrepreneurship. He's starting to debate whether you can teach it or not. Like what you're saying, Henry. With it's like, yeah, you can become the best or a really good basketball player, but you're not going to be the best unless you have natural talent, big hands, you're tall, etc. And his sentiment is it's kind of similar entrepreneurship. I don't know. I'm still wrestling with that whole idea.
Well, you took entrepreneurship classes. Like I've never done that. I don't like. How effective is that,
dude? Those are my favorite classes.
Yeah,
but maybe that's because I'm already into it. I don't know. I think that's the big message, like the big lesson in all of this in the world is just like never force shit.
Yeah.
Like I'm not forcing myself to work. I just love what we're doing right now. The team that we're building around this whole mission of getting our counterintuitive thoughts out there.
Where if you didn't have it, you would miss it.
Right. Like I would have to, if someone came and like trying to steal my mic and shit to record their podcast, I'm like, give me that. That's my fucking podcast mic. And I fight them. And I'd probably lose, but I got like a 1 month and a half jiu-jitsu white belt. So
I forgot. Dylan was taking jiu-jitsu. You would go, and the warm-up was so difficult, you would leave after the warm-up.
They're like, Dylan, why do you keep leaving early? We didn't even start rolling. I'm like, I'm real tired.
Okay, let's take this to what I think is one of the most unique points he makes in the book, and that is that ideas are just a multiplier of execution. I've been saying this my entire life. You know, an idea is worth nothing if you can't execute. And I know a lot of people that can't and don't execute. There's a lot of talk. And for Derek Sivers to actually put a number on that, albeit kind of, wavy handy. Yeah, arbitrary, was really fascinating. So here's his explanation. He's just saying ideas are worth nothing unless they're executed. They're just a multiplier. Execution is what's worth millions. So he has an awful idea is worth -1, a weak idea is worth 1, an average idea 5, all the way up to a brilliant idea is 20 points. And no execution is worth $1, weak execution $1,000, all the way up to a brilliant execution is $10 million. And so if you multiply those two things, right, a brilliant idea with brilliant execution, he gets to 200 billion. And I don't know, a weak idea, which is 1
million,
200 million. Sorry. A weak idea, which is the number 1 with good execution, 100,000, 1 times 100,000, you get to 100,000. I just thought that was, yeah.
That's so funny because I just read on Wikipedia that CD Baby, granted he sold it I don't know, like a decade ago, but it just resold for $200 million
They're still
in
around.
2019.
They're
Yeah,
still
it's
around.
still. I
Oh,
think they just adapted to the digital environment.
that's
It's
super interesting. So they're in
so
the
he
echelon of brilliant idea with brilliant execution,
literally
right?
it's literally $200 million like on the head. That's crazy.
I wonder if it got there and then Derek Sivers
Yeah, he updated. He's like,
contacted the whatever executives there now. He's like, shut down, shut down, shut down. I gotta prove this point. um, yeah. Have you ever seen like a number put on ideas like that? I think
no,
it's
but I
really
love
smart.
it. I love it because one, it has the negative, right? So you realize if you're dumping all this money and energy and time into
Into
a
an
crappy idea, it's destructive.
yes,
And
you're losing.
then, yeah, if you have a mediocre idea, it's just going to be zero. Um,
And
I love quantifying. So yeah.
yeah, we it is good quantification. We kind of talk about this in venture capital terms. Is like when you're going out to raise money as a startup, as a business, whatever. Um, if you are a terrible idea with a good team, that'd be good execution. Like you can get funding because they're these VCs they want execution. They want like
Mm.
you know they want to
Well,
they want to
that's
put their money where your mouth is. Um,
exactly. And
versus you
sorry,
could have an
finish going.
excellent team, awesome team with a terrible idea, i.e. that negative one, and you're not going to get funded because I mean, what's a terrible team going to do? They're going to execute terribly.
We had, so in my entrepreneurship class in college, because we were just talking about it, I loved it. And it was based off of Harvard Business School, how they structure their case study sort of environment. And just because my professor went there. And so it was POCD, and the P stands for people. Let me see if I remember all of them. People, opportunities, something deal. What's context? I think it's context. But whatever. People is the most important. Like if you, oh, who says it? Oh, something. Someone says where like they would rather have a B team or an A team. Sorry, an A team with a
Yes,
C idea
yes.
than whatever, like a B team and an A idea. Like it's so important. I don't know exactly what it was, but the A team is so critical because they can execute. And I don't know.
And
I bullshit you.
maybe the idea changes over time, but if you got that A plus team,
Right. The team's going to be the constant. And that's why with our team right now, I really care so much that everyone's around the mission and just wants to be in the long term. And so far, so good. But yeah, if you have the right team in place, you just adapt to new ideas and you go from there. Um,
yeah, good stuff. Pap. What else? What were your other takeaways?
all right. So
I think you listed your number one.
yeah, that was number one. Number two was exactly what we talked about: idea and action. Um, One thing that I want to connect it to again, only a handful of people that I mention every time, but Noah Kagan, he talked with
There's the
Tim
other one.
Ferriss on YouTube. I will find the video for you, 2K. And it's like an hour, but it's such an instructional video in terms of how can people test their business ideas, take action this week. That's what Noah's big on. That's why I like his whole premise with starting businesses is like, can you make $100 by the end of the week off your business? And immediately, like, who anyone can make $100. Like, I could come up to you, Henry, and be like, "Hey, Henry, I'm gonna edit a video, $100."
Yeah.
Like, if it's because I'm providing value, like taking that off your plate. So just provide value, charge for people immediately, rather than building this blog and like not making any money for years, or like trying to design some software that never gets proven in the marketplace. Because all right, Gary V, he's like, he'll let the market decide what's good. Like they don't know what's good. They're just putting out content and then they adapt based on how people respond.
That's my big thing with finding need-based solutions. Everybody's heard this, but right, if you asked people what they wanted in 1904 or whenever it was, when Ford was obviously toying with the idea of building cars, they would have said a faster horse, right?
Mm.
That's like people don't necessarily know what they need. That's a really hard one. So yeah, you have to just like do and let the market decide. Um, they would have never said they needed the Model T or A. No, T came first. So that's kind of interesting.
Why'd they go with what does T stand for?
I don't know. I don't know, but the Teslas spell sexy. Model S, E is not out, and then the X and the Y.
Oh,
Oh,
really?
sorry, 3. Yeah, sexy.
That's such a nerdy
It's
fucking
just a
thing to do.
silly little Easter egg.
Long term shit.
Yeah,
Little
S,
Easter egg.
Model 3, Model X, and now the Y is out.
So my last one is connected to design and how you design the company, because Derek went through the whole gamut of starting small, building this team in an interesting way. And I like this way how he builds it, and I'll go elaborate in
Yeah,
a second.
this
But
is right what I was about to say. He says it's okay to be casual.
yeah,
His
so
hiring
he starts
policy.
as whatever, just himself. He has too many people wanting his product, so he has to expand the team. He does it in a very casual way, gets up to like 80 plus employees, I think. And then the employees like kind of mutinize
Stage a coup.
they stage a coup and take over basically in a fucking hilarious way. And then he just ends up becoming an incel. Like, what do you call those
They
people?
started routing the company's profits into their pockets. They started a profit sharing program he didn't know about, which
Yeah,
is
he was just a
hilarious.
yes man to whatever. He's like, oh yeah, delegate.
And then
They
he
end up
shuts
taking
it down, and they all turned against him.
Dude, that's so, I didn't laugh at, like, it's funny when you think about it.
Yeah,
That's tragic.
yeah.
That's so tragic.
So his
But
hiring policy. Were you
yeah.
done?
Well, I was going to touch on that, but you can go.
He says, my hiring policy was ridiculous. Because I was, quote, too busy to bother, I'd just ask my current employees if they had any friends who needed work. Someone always did, so he'd say, tell them to start tomorrow, $10 an hour, show them what we do. That's freaking cool.
That I have qualms with that because, well, one, it's definitely easy. Like, he took the easy approach. Clearly, if you've watched, I mean, I had a couple episodes ago, like our in-depth hiring process. Like, I'm a lot more elaborate, hands-on than he is. But I do like the mentality of hire quickly, fire quickly. I think he calls it lightly in the book. But just take people on, test them. That's a underlying theme. And shoot, what was his name? I just mentioned it with Avtar. Whatever. You don't know how good people are until they're doing the job they're supposed to be doing.
We talked about, like, resumes are just made out of thin air, like, largely. Like, you can't sense that everything on a resume is true. But if you get them in the place and you start training them, granted, like, this could be an expensive way to find out, but I think there's merit to, like, you don't know what somebody's capable of until they've been on the job for a week or two. Then you can really understand.
What do you think of Elon Musk then, with his whole like fuck resume mentality of just prove to me that you've done one cool project and that you're good at this stuff?
Is that
I don't
Elon
care.
Musk?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
because
his
he's
hiring
also
policy.
notorious for, like, these 10-part interviews that end with him and, like, these just kind of, like, crazy questioning.
I think that's because he's trying to test your skills so much, and he's so critical, or I don't know what the word is, but he just doesn't trust the quality of
Yeah, perfectionism,
resumes
maybe. I
and
think
schools.
where Derek Sivers says hire lightly, fire lightly, I think Elon Musk was hire hard, fire hard. You know, like, there were notorious examples of him just totally lashing out on people for kind of weird things and then publicly firing them.
All right. Well, I guess you take a little bit of everything. That's probably the case with the world. Like, I think in general, give people a shot. Like, screen them hard, find the best, maybe a handful of them, but you don't know who's the top echelon until you try them out, and then don't be afraid to fire. That's kind of why we've had our trial processes, and I fired multiple VAs at this point after the trial process. Granted, if you're listening now, the current team, I'm elated with your work, but it is important to do.
And finding good talent is really hard, and I think that's why so many companies offer referrals for hiring. Like, every company in Silicon Valley, it's like, $5,000 if you refer someone that gets hired. And I think that's because, like, if you're already working there and you're a good employee and you can recommend somebody, they're kind of already coming through the filter of you, right? So it's kind of a reflection of you as an employee. So I think it's smart to
You
hire
remember
friends. And
that, sorry to cut you off. That was it Andreessen Horowitz? No, not Andreessen. What's the other Remember when I was asking you about how in Silicon Valley you always have to have a connection
That
to
was
get into?
Andreessen Horowitz. Yeah, going
Okay.
through they're like, don't come through the front door or the back door. Like, we want you crawling through the window, right?
What is that? What does that exactly mean?
Like everyone's trying to come in the front door to pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of sneaky people are trying to figure out a way into their
Mm.
pitches, into their meetings from the back door. They're like, we want you to be so smart about how you get a meeting with us. Like, we want you breaking down the window, you know?
There's a book that I want to read. I haven't read it yet, but I've heard it recommended a lot. I want to say it's like The Third Door or something like that. Something like that about it's like the back door. It'll be in the show notes, but it's it's what a lot of people reference of like take the untraditional route. That's how you hack it. That's what David did when we talked to David about how he got into private equity when he shouldn't have technically. You just find your connection, and that's your into Andreessen Horowitz in this case, or whatever company it is, because it is so hard to hire.
In a similar vein, let me take you. We crossed paths on a lot of things we liked. I think my last one is one of the chapters titled "Formality Plays on Fear, Bravely Refuse."
Mm-hmm.
And this is something I carry with me every single day. Is just like, just because like things are the way they are doesn't mean that has to be the case. Like, I was fed up with Wi-Fi yesterday and like getting screwed by big businesses, that I was like, if it's just a formality for me to call up Xfinity or call up the big cable company and get them here to set up Wi-Fi, like I was like, I want to know at the root how Wi-Fi works so I can pay the littlest amount with the best speeds. And you especially get this dichotomy between me and my mom, where I'm like, I will do anything if I think like the formality in place is just something not everyone should subscribe to. And she's like, well, this is how it's always been done, so it has to be done that way. That was a big one for me.
With here, I'll mention quickly while it's on my mind. That's such a first principles thinking.
Exactly.
And that's what I've heard referenced with, say, Elon Musk and SpaceX, where he's like, I forget the numbers, but it's like, I don't even know, maybe 100 billion or something to send a spaceship, whatever you call them, like send a satellite up. It costs him a certain amount. And he's like, all right, let's think from first principles. I mean, we have fuel, we have the satellite itself, but what else is there? Like there aren't many more costs, so it shouldn't be that high. Why is it so inflated? And then he just figures out, he builds it from the ground up. In your case, you're finding a giant 23-story building to tap into,
Right.
or whatever. But
for him too, it was like, okay, these things cost $20 billion to launch. Why is that? Well, it's because NASA, every time they launch a rocket, their first stage boost shoots off the rocket and just falls in the ocean.
Right.
And he's like, okay, that doesn't have to be so. We will make reusable first stages. It's like, that's first principles. Everyone just took it for granted that you launch something and the first stage gets dumped in the ocean. It was the equivalent of a 737 jet being thrown in the ocean.
Right. Imagine every time you want to go to California or New York or whatever, you just have to parachute out because the plane's going to crash.
Right. And Derek Sivers is saying bravely refuse. More specifically, he's talking about terms and conditions, privacy policies, like all the legal stuff that would have got in the way of him creating CD Baby and being the best product it could possibly be for his customers. He was like, I don't want to deal with all that legal stuff. Class action lawsuits, maybe they happen from time to time. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But I just kind of refuse for now to like play into that whole waste of time. I'm big on that. So
that's so important, because they had hundreds of thousands of clients themselves, even more customers, or I guess people buying the CDs. Yeah. So it just goes to show, like, I remember I had my own questions of like, Belky, we're starting this thing. Like, how much should I contact a lawyer, like get this whole business entity set up and like really just double down? But it was such a headache. And it's like all this friction. And you're like, right now is the most important part for building that momentum. Don't let it bog you down. Clearly, this is just confirmation bias, but it's like, fuck the formalities. Like, you're not going to get sued right now. That's not the biggest deal. There are so many issues that people concern themselves with. It's like, oh, I'll set up the LLC, spend $2,000 here and there.
I forgot about that.
I know, and it stressed me the fuck out. And I'll put it off, and once we get like real traction and this is really taking off, then I'll look into it. But now the focus is just let's make awesome podcasts and figure out how to put out the content. So I'm all in favor of everything there. I'm sure if I looked at the table of contents, there's even more. I think we'll mention too, where you just did this with your email, but just being casual. Like the world is for some reason so uptight about, oh, I got to be a robot online and say XYZ and sound super
I hope you are well.
Right.
Like that's the first and last sentence of your email. Who came up with that? I hope you're well. Dylan, I hope you're having an awesome day. Like that's how I write my emails.
Right. I actually make an effort. I'll write out an email and then I'll look back where I'm like, you are, and I'll combine it, whatever that's called.
Oh, I'm really anti not using contractions. As in like
you only want contractions.
Well, yeah, like if you go to the career lab at school and you give them your cover letter or something, they're like, nope, you can't use the word I. You can't you cannot use contractions. And I'm like, so we're all just robots now? Like,
yeah, I just heard you say some bullshit. You said dunno. Like, I don't know.
And you say gunu.
Yeah, I say gunu. It's fucking, we're all nonsensical, but we're pretending to just be smart.
Yeah.
And so you implemented kind of what Derek did, and just for context, he had, when people buy a CD, he had this whole elaborate story about how they're taking care of it. And
well, tell him what it was first.
Well, you have more, you understand it better than I.
So first, like every time they had a CD go out, it was like, thanks for your order. Your CD has shipped. It will arrive in whatever X days. They'd fill it in. And then he was like, well, why is that the status quo? Can't we just make this a little bit more exciting for our customers? And then I can actually, do you want me to read it?
Yeah, I'll talk while you're finding it.
Okay, I got it, Pap.
God, the physical.
What do you want to say?
Bam, bam, bam. No, you go.
Okay, so he said that boring email felt really incongruent with their mission to make people smile. So they knew they could do better, and they changed it to this. And here's their now order confirmation email. Your CD has been gently taken from our CD baby shelves with sterilized, contamination-free gloves and placed onto a satin pillow. A team of 50 employees inspected your CD and polished it to make sure it was in the best possible condition before mailing. Our packing specialist from Japan lit a candle, and a hush fell over the crowd as he put your CD into the finest gold-lined box that money can buy. We all had a wonderful celebration afterwards, and the whole party marched down the street to the post office, where the entire town of Portland waved bon voyage to your package on its way to you in our private CD baby jet on this day, Friday, June 6th. I hope you had a wonderful time shopping at CD Baby. We sure did. Your picture is on our wall as customer of the year. We're all exhausted, but can't wait for you to come back to cdbaby.com.
Oh, that's so good.
You know, like, why isn't that what you get?
We're smiling, and it's not even for us.
Well, Amazon should be sending emails like that, but they won't, because it's a formality not to.
Well, here's what's interesting, because Amazon, because I just actually posted on my Instagram story today, but reading Delivering Happiness, which is about the Zappos story. They have the best customer or like company culture, I should say, because they treat customers so well, etc. And they're just super casual about everything. Like, I love that mentality of just like, fuck pretending to not be a little bit weird, a little bit quirky. Actually, Zappos has an interview question on a scale of 1 to 10. How weird are you? And they just want to see, like,
that's cool.
Usually the 1s and the 10s they're a little scared of, but like they want to hear the 8. Like, why do you rationalize 8? I'm trying to think of that myself. I'm like probably 6, I guess, but I get up there. I get close to an 8 sometimes.
It's important too. I think this was Warby Parker I was reading about once upon a time, but they're like, our customer is everything. Warby Parker, they were going door to door selling these glasses, and they're like, if the customer is not happy, they're not going to buy more products. They're not going to tell their friends and family to buy stuff. And so when customers would have an issue and they'd come back and say like, oh, like these don't fit, the founders at the time were like, give them a free pair of glasses, just or give them a free pair of shoes, whatever it was. Like that small price you pay for the lifetime value of that customer is like, it just, you can't even equate the two.
So yeah, exactly. Warby Parker does it. Zappos they have a bunch of stories because they give so much freedom to their employees to spend crazy amounts. Like there are stories of Zappos employer. Like they were saying how, I don't know the exact Zappos customer, sorry. I don't know the exact story, but it was like the customer called in like, "Hey, can I get a new pair of shoes? Mine got destroyed in a fire." And like, "Oh, a fire? Like, are you okay?" Like normally the customer
Yeah.
service wouldn't ask, "Are you okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay, but my dog died in the fire, unfortunately." And it was super sad. And the customer service agent was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Whatever, what's your address? I'll send you the shoes." And then a week later, the shoes arrive, but they arrive with a portrait of this person's dog, like them and the dog together.
How?
And it's just because Zappos
Sheer
enables
will.
you to spend and just
Wow.
be nice to customers because customers are number one. And I think that's the point is like if you leave a unique print on people, like you just sound like a genuine human being that cares, they're going to spread the message. We're talking about this story that he probably wrote 20 years ago in terms of his email
Yeah.
buying order.
Yeah.
It's so important to just treat that's Derek's mentality is just treat your current customers well and they'll spread your message for you.
Mm-hmm. And treat them better than yourself was another point. Yeah, he says, wow, and then we got to get out of here. This was about care about your customers more than about yourself, because he says he's talking about pharmaceutical companies, and basically he says any business that's in business to sell you a cure is motivated not to focus on prevention,
Mm,
right? Specifically pharmaceuticals, right? They're not interested in keeping you healthy and maintaining your health. They're interested in selling you the cure. And he's like, not
right.
the right business to be
He
in.
that's his thing. He designed the perfect company if he were his customer.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's hard to do, but there's so many lessons. Read this book, 40 of them in. It's so concise. Everyone has an hour and you'll just have so much knowledge, even if you're not an entrepreneur. I sent it to Camila, actually. I'm like, hey, I know you're kind of on the fence about entrepreneurship, but this is a great book regardless, just on.
There's a little bit of everything in there. There's marketing, there's hiring, there's just email. Like there's just a little bit. It's a brilliant little pocketbook.
Right. Little pocketbook. All right, Belky. You won't be here, I don't think, for the Optar
Thank the
talk,
Lord.
but that
I
is
won't be
coming
here
after.
for many days.
True. Going off to the woods, and we'll see you when, Belky.
I don't know. I don't know what day it is. I don't know when we post these. I don't know where I am. I don't know how long I've been hostage, but I'll see you when I see you. Have fun with Avatar. I know you two have a lot to figure out. It's very interesting.
Awesome. All right. Deuces.
See ya.